Hello, I'm Esther Gidou-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up.
Israel carried out a pre-dawn aerial strike inside Iran on Friday, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. has not been involved in any offensive operation. Kenya mourns the death of its military chief, General Francis Ogola, who died in a helicopter crash on Thursday alongside 9 others. We'll have a live report from Nairobi. And in our entertainment report, Heather Maxwell brings her popular Drop the Needle music quiz and puts VOA Africa's Anasthasie Tudieshe to test. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54.
We begin our broadcast in the Middle East, where tensions remain as Israel carried out a pre-dawn aerial strike inside Iran on Friday local time, according to U.S. media citing unnamed Israeli and U.S. officials. Tehran played down the incident and indicated it had no plans for retaliation. Iranian media and officials described a small number of explosions, which they said resulted from air defenses hitting 3 drones over the city of Isfahan in central Iran. Notably, they referred to the incident as an attack by infiltrators rather than by Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, addressing news conference capping a gathering of G7 foreign ministers on the southern Italian island of Capri, said Washington has not been involved in any offensive operations, as it was committed to de-escalating tensions in the region.
First, the G7 condemned the unprecedented Iranian attack on Israel, unprecedented in scope and scale. Scope because it was a direct attack on Israel from Iran, scale because it involved more than 300 munitions, including ballistic missiles. We're committed to Israel's security. We're also committed to de-escalating, to trying to bring this tension to a close. You saw as well, or you'll see soon in the G7 statement, a commitment to hold Iran to account for its destabilizing activities, holding it to account by degrading its missile and drone capabilities. And yesterday, the United States announced additional sanctions on Iran, targeting UAV programs, the steel industry, companies that are associated with the IRGC, the Ministry of Defense, and its armed forces logistics. The G7 statement makes clear that G7 countries will adopt additional sanctions or other measures in the days ahead.
Israel said nothing about the incident, but Ehud said for days it was planning to retaliate. Iran rather said for days it was planning to retaliate against Iran for Saturday's strikes. Now let's get more insight on the Israel's aerial strike in Iran. I'm joined live via Skype from here in Washington, D.C. by Bruce Fein, an American lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Bruce, welcome back to Africa 54. Are we looking at a potential new war between Israel and Iran?
I don't think so. I don't even think what we've witnessed in the last several days is much of an escalation. For decades, Israel has secretly, through Mossad or otherwise, been assassinating Iranian scientists working on the nuclear program. It has bombed the transfer of weapons from Iran through Syria to Hezbollah, been fighting a proxy war with Iran through Hezbollah, occupying the northern border of Israel from Lebanon. And Iran obviously has retaliated not directly in the past, but through Hezbollah or agents or the Houthis in Yemen. And this has been ongoing for decades. What we've witnessed is just a very modest escalation, perhaps for political purposes. I think that when President Biden openly stated that he was warning Iran to do nothing in response to the Israeli bombing of the embassy complex of Iran in Syria, Damascus, that he almost forced Iran to do something so it didn't look like a paper tiger. So I think I'm not trying to suggest that any kind of attack is innocuous. but this does not seem to me to rise to the level of taking us to a new scale of warfare that I say that's been persistent for 2 decades.
Well, but Bruce, there are a lot of people who are concerned that Iran could say it has no plans to retaliate because that's what it has said. But should we take that with a pinch of salt?
Yes, we should. They're going to retaliate through the Houthis and Hezbollah, if not directly. And if Israel isn't as overt as it was in the bombing of the embassy complex, Israel will take sabotage actions in Iran through Mossad or otherwise. So these are just public statements that conceal what really is going on underneath the surface, which is kind of low-level warfare that has been persistent for long, long years.
Now, very quickly, Bruce, now that we know the U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote on $26 billion for Israel, do you think that might also, kind of make Israel say, hey, if anybody's coming after us, we're going to hit back big?
I don't think it means that if we say we don't want the retaliation, we don't want escalation, it's our money. So Israel, I don't think is going to respond to saying that, well, now we have U.S. money, now we'll even be more defined what the United States wants. So I don't think it will embolden Israel to have them more money. I think that money is needed largely for their campaign in Gaza and against Hamas, not against Iran. So I don't think that money is going to affect the balance of strategy that now lies with Israel.
Bruce, right. Bruce, many thanks for your insight. Bruce Fine is an American lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Kenya's military chief, General Francis Ogolla, died in a helicopter crash on Thursday along with 9 others. They were on a helicopter which President William Ruto said crashed right after takeoff after visiting troops fighting cattle rustling. The bodies of the dead were returned to Nairobi late on Thursday. 2 soldiers survived the crash and were in hospital, according to President Ruto. He added that an air investigation team is working to determine the cause of the crash. Ogolla was appointed by Ruto last year to lead the military. At the time, the president accused him of involvement in a plot to overturn the 2022 presidential election results. But he said Ogolla was still the most qualified person for the job. Now, for the latest on the Kenya's helicopter crash, I'm joined from Nairobi by Mariama Diallo, VOA's Nairobi Bureau Chief. Mariama, thank you for joining us. Do we have an update on what caused the helicopter crash?
So thank you so much for having me. No, not at this moment. I think, as you mentioned, President Ruto has dispatched a whole team to get to the site of the crash to figure out, basically do an investigation and figure out what happened. Because as everything, as he announced yesterday, he said that the helicopter crashed right after takeoff, a little bit shortly after takeoff, basically. So at this point, we don't have much more. And I guess probably in the next few days, who knows, few weeks or few months, we'll get those answers now that a team has already been dispatched to figure out what happened.
Mariama, do we know the status of the 2 survivors that are in the hospital?
That's also a very good question, given that it only happened yesterday, and obviously General Ogolla was among 10 people who perished during this helicopter crash, and obviously 2 people have survived, but not much has been coming out of, what their status is. Are they, is it very serious? Are they out of harm's way, or what's happening to them? So we don't really have that information either at this moment, but surely we'll get it to you as soon as it becomes available.
Mariama, how are Kenyans honoring the deceased?
Well, I think the Kenyans, it's a huge shock, given that the Kenyan population just went into another crash. It was a different one. It was Kelvin Kiptum around the same kind of county area. It was a car crash, but they just kind of are getting, I wouldn't say getting over, but just kind of getting back to normal with that. And then they get another crash with really the chief of the defense forces and 9 other people. I mean, that's shocking. And I'm just going to show you real quick. And, obviously everybody that's who is in their mind. When I picked up newspapers this morning, that's what I had. Almost every newspaper is talking about the crash and him. Even in Swahili, obviously, I can translate this. But I think to come back to what is supposed to happen, at least in the short term, because I think the Ruto government is trying to basically do what General Ogala wanted. He wanted to be buried within 72 hours. So tomorrow there will be a ceremony, a whole military ceremony with 19 gun salute and all the honors, military honors that are supposed to be given to someone like him. So all of that, I think a lot of it is happening tomorrow. And we've also seen that it's not just President Ruto, but we've seen former President Uhuru Kenyatta. We've expressed condolences. We've also seen Raila Odinga, the opposition leader, express condolences, and many, 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 many more. So I guess the next few, at least the next few days, certainly the country is mourning once again one of their sons. And yes, and so as we go, we'll figure out what really happened.
Mariama, thank you very much for giving us the latest from Nairobi. Mariama Diallo is VOA's Nairobi Bureau Chief. The future of artificial intelligence and its impact on jobs the world over was one of the major topics at the IMF spring meetings in Washington Thursday as the world grapples with regulating the industry. During a discussion, panelists, including Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, highlighted AI's potential for economic transformation while underscoring the risks it poses. Georgieva, however, sounded the alarm over excluding developing economies from this emerging tech industry.
On average in the world, it would be 40% of jobs. In low-income countries, 26% of jobs. You can say, oh, thank God, they're not getting this tsunami to hit them. But on the other hand, what it means is that they're falling behind again. And this is why I am a big proponent of thinking about the economic opportunities and risks in a way that brings everybody together.
Today the conversations are about hallucinations, about deep fakes, are about misinformation. And I think we need to have the agility in government to be able to regulate effectively, understand what the technology can and cannot do, and also understand where we can play a role as well as the government.
5 years ago, I would have presumed that democracies and open political systems are ultimately more stable than authoritarian systems. And I would have argued that private sector competitive-driven economies are more efficient than either state-owned driven economies or private sector monopoly-driven economies. I think that what we are seeing now from AI makes me question whether or not those assumptions will remain true in another 5 years. I'm not worried about existential risks from the robots taking over. I don't care about the paperclip problem. I'm very interested in how actors deploy AI in ways that will change society, change security, change the economy, and change the stability of our political system.
Even when we ask the innocent question, what will AI do to productivity? What will AI do to jobs? We're asking the wrong question. It will do whatever we choose it to do. It's a very versatile and potentially capable technology, but AI doesn't have in its DNA something that it will do to productivity, something that it will do to jobs, something that it will do to misinformation. This is where, again, our choices matter greatly. Social automation is the name that my collaborator Pascual Restrepo and I give to the eagerness with which businesses sometimes automate, substituting machines and algorithms for human creativity. And it doesn't work so well because humans are much better than bosses and tech leaders sometimes give them credit. And what you end up with is displaced workers, but not much of the productivity gains. No, I completely agree with you, Kristalina, that AI has the potential to improve productivity. But we have to be realistic. It's not going to create a productivity revolution.
Asemoglu, professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Earlier, you had president and founder of Eurasia, Ian Bremmer. Omar Sultan Al-Olama, the UAE's Minister for Artificial Intelligence, and IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva. We'll have a full report on the IMF spring meetings for you on Monday. 30 years after the genocide in Rwanda that killed an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and some moderate Hutus, the Rwandan government is pushing to change how the genocide is referred to. The issue was addressed at a recent commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the genocide, also known as Kwibuka, in Washington, D.C., with U.S. lawmakers pledging support for the change. VOA's Anthony Labruto joins us now from Capitol Hill with more. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Esther. Yes, it was a very powerful day on Capitol Hill for the commemoration of the Rwanda genocide. Hearing survivors vividly recount their experiences now 30 years on felt just as raw and powerful now as I'm sure it did for them then. Take a look. U.S. lawmakers gathered alongside Rwandan diplomats in Washington, D.C. for the 30th Kwibuka, or Remembrance of the Genocide in Rwanda. This year's Kwibuka, held on Monday, placed a special emphasis on survivors and their stories, as well as the work that's been done to repair inter-community relations since the genocide occurred in 1994. Referred to over the last 30 years as the Rwandan genocide, the Rwandan government has been pushing for a new name. It prefers the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda to give more recognition to Tutsis who were the majority of the victims and were specifically targeted by largely Hutu attackers. Rwandan government efforts to lobby the international community for the name change have been unsuccessful for the past few years. However, efforts made by the United Nations brought the subject back to prominence. Alice Weremu Indiritu, the Undersecretary of the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention, has been at the forefront of that change.
And the Tutsi were targeted for extinction. Anyone else who died, and we do know that there were Hutu who died, who opposed this genocide. We do know there were other people who died who opposed this genocide, but they were not the target. The target was the Tutsi. They would not have been killed if the intention was not to kill the Tutsi.
Some U.S. lawmakers have also been receptive to the change. Trent Kelly, a member of the United States House of Representatives, has proposed a resolution for the United States to formally recognize the name change to be consistent with Rwanda's terminology. Members of the Rwandan diaspora say this will be a welcome step in acknowledging the additional work the international community must do to help Rwanda.
To be here 5 years later and seeing that this is the conversation that we're having and the right terminology is being used. So for us as Rwandans, this is very, very important.
For survivors of the genocide, sharing their experiences at the Capitol reminds the world of the atrocities that happened and their duty to continue educating the world.
It was not a genocide against Rwanda, it was a genocide against Tutsi group. So people deny the genocide, they use different names, they use different numbers. And we feel insulted because when people avoid to tell the truth, there is a big risk to repeat the same ideology somewhere else, because never again is it true in Rwanda, but genocide can happen to any country. So, and that's why we call the international community to do what had to be done to make it never again anywhere.
Thank you, Anthony, for that reporting. Anthony Labruto, live for us from Capitol Hill here in Washington. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden wants to triple tariffs on some steel imports from China because he says they are unfairly undermining U.S. jobs. It is an appeal to American workers in a state that is central to this presidential campaign. VOA correspondent Scott Stearns has our story.
Hello, Pittsburgh. President Biden told Pennsylvania steel workers that he'll protect their jobs from cheap Chinese imports.
And the prices are unfairly low because China's steel companies don't need to worry about making a profit because the Chinese government is subsidizing them so heavily. They're not competing. They're cheating. They're cheating. And we've seen the damage here in America.
Biden promised to stand up to unfair Chinese competition, calling Beijing xenophobic. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Xian says accusations of xenophobia are hypocritical, coming from a country that he says should lift its protectionist measures against China.
China is aware of the relevant reports. China would like to ask, are you talking about China or the U.S. itself?
Biden acting against Chinese steel would come on top of tariffs imposed by his predecessor, Donald Trump, who put a 25% tax on some Chinese steel. The Trump presidential campaign said in a statement to VOA, quote, "The Biden campaign is attacking President Trump's effective tariffs on China, while the Biden White House is planning to implement similar tariffs. The Trump campaign added, Biden's team is either run by hypocrites or people who don't know what they're doing. One difference in the candidate's approach is that Trump used tariffs more broadly to impact new trade deals, says Rachel Ziemba from the Center for a New American Security.
They were using tariffs partly as leverage for sort of resetting the trade side of things. Now, the Biden administration, they're using tariffs, they're trying to target them, but they're also using industrial policy and other incentives to try to encourage U.S. production, to encourage foreign and American companies to invest in the United States.
Pennsylvania steel workers are an important vote in a state that could help swing this election for either candidate. The Biden campaign's out with this commercial featuring Pennsylvania steel worker Jojo Burgess.
Right now, we have the most pro-American worker president in office that we've ever had in this country's history. Donald Trump cares about one person and one person only, and that's Donald Trump.
Trump campaigned for union votes during last year's auto strike by telling workers that Biden administration regulations are an attack on their jobs.
The auto industry is being assassinated, and it makes no difference what you get. I don't care what you get in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks. They're going to be closing up, and they're going to be building those cars in China and other places.
NBC News polling earlier this year found that union household voters favor Biden over Trump, but by a smaller margin than in their 2020 contest. Scott Stearns, VOA News.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come in our entertainment report, Heather Maxwell brings her popular Drop the Needle music quiz. Stay tuned.
Like their neurotypical peers, women with autism can learn to live independently, build career, start a business, and more. Researchers say women with autistic spectrum condition can be a huge asset to a workplace due to their strong ability to solve problems or their direct approach to communication. However, understanding their needs is key to success. On this week's edition of Our Voices, we will discuss what success means to an autistic woman. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, a French bank, BNP French Bank Paribas BNP PA, was ordered by a U.S. judge on Thursday to face a lawsuit accusing the French bank of helping Sudan's government commit genocide between 1997 and 2011 by providing banking services that violated American sanctions. The proposed class action was brought by U.S. residents who had fled non-Arab indigenous Black African communities in South Sudan, Darfur, and the Nuba Mountains. A Nigerian court on Friday adjourned a tax evasion trial against cryptocurrency exchange Binance and two of its executives to May 17 after the matter was stalled because the exchange has not been formally served with the charges. Binance and its executives Tigran Gabarayan, a U.S. citizen and head of financial crime compliance, and Nadeem Anjawala, a British Kenyan who is a regional manager for Africa, face 4 counts of tax evasion. And the mining investment arm of Abu Dhabi's most valuable company has offered to buy a majority stake in Vedanta Resources' Zambian copper assets in its drive to build an African copper mining empire. The unit, International Resources Holding, is racing to broaden its burgeoning copper mining business in Zambia. It's time for our entertainment report. Today, Heather Maxwell brings her popular Drop the Needle music quiz and puts VOA Africa's Anasthasie Tudieshe to the test. Let's watch.
So I'm here with Anasthasie. Anasthasie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good. Very happy to be here.
Good. You were saying earlier that radio is your first love, even though now you're a TV personality.
I'm a TV personality, but I've been a radio personality for so long in France, in Paris, for 10 years.
Oh.
From Africa numéro 1 to RFI. So I miss it so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, your voice sounds delicious.
Thank you.
Anasthasie, are you ready for this music?
Oh, Heather, I was born ready. And you will see. I came prepared.
Okay, you got 15 seconds. Here's the first one.
Imkanyezi by Nonsi Bozikore. Did I get it?
You got it. You got it. Man, that was so fast. What, girl? Okay.
I did my homework.
All right. Here's number 2 then. You're so fast. Let's try it.
Oh, maybe it was just the luck. Aerostar? Come on.
You got it.
And I didn't know the song, so I'm very
Oh, you studied it. And you know where Ira Star, you're supposed to name the name of the country that the singer is
Nigeria.
from. Of course.
Of course.
Okay, number 3. Do you know what commas means? What is she talking about?
No idea.
I haven't figured it out yet.
No idea. Are you serious right now? I wonder. Is it Mozart? Let me see. Julio Iglesias, maybe? Come on.
I made it just for you. I thought maybe it would be hard, the other 2, so I thought I'd make this one easy. Anasthasie, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Last name?
Tudieshe.
I knew that.
Of course you did.
Anasthasie Tudieshe. Did I say it right?
Tudieshe.
Anasthasie Tudieshe.
Yay!
Thank you so much. You are impeccable.
What? Is it already done? No,
yes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, listen. This month is Jazz Appreciation Month.
Ooh.
At the end of the month is International Jazz Day.
Ooh.
Maybe you want to comment. Do you like jazz? Is something you like?
Love jazz, and I love how, especially nowadays, each culture gives it its own flavor.
Yeah.
You know, from Lionel Loueke from Benin, Richard Bona in Cameroon, the African addings to jazz,
Huge.
invented by African descendants,
yes.
is absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Have you heard of Alioune Wade from Senegal?
Yes, absolutely.
He just released a brand new single last week. It's great.
Oh.
I've already aired it on the
Okay,
show.
I'll check it out.
Okay, Anasthasie, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
And thank